Silence.
Hello and welcome to the 2022 Avantra Summit. My name is Tyler Constable, one of the Avantra team members here, and we are thrilled to have you. Before we begin, we just want to say thank you for joining us on our second round here. We understand we tried to initiate this a couple weeks ago due to some technical difficulties. Couldn't get it kicked off right, but we're here and we're thrilled that you're here because we have an amazing set of things for you today. We've got customer stories, we've got partner discussions. We've got demonstrations with things that have just come out and released today. We've got the capability of winning an Apple Watch, so keep an eye out in the chat as there's a link for a survey to win an Apple Watch. And then at the end, we have a live question and answer. So as you are thinking of questions, drop them in the chat, and we will try to answer as many of those as we can in the panel discussion at the end. Now, before we really get into things, just want to talk a little bit about something we're seeing in the market these days. One of the best things about my job is every day I get to wake up and speak with organizations worldwide on SAP running within their environments. And typically, when we talk about geographical regions, everyone's doing something different. Everyone has different things that they want to discuss and talk about. But what we're seeing today is a lot more individuals coming into one kind of thought. Right? And it doesn't matter. You could be in the US, you could be in Mexico, Brazil, Australia, Japan, India, Germany, the UK, or anywhere in between. There's this thought of we want to get off of these task-driven things that we have to do every single day. We want to get more focused on innovation. And really, it's stemming from not so much just the SAP side of things, but the IT operations as a whole in an organization. As companies are adopting things like ServiceNow and Red Hat Ansible, they're looking for ways to take back some of those tasks-driven activities and make them more of an innovation automation platform. From an SAP side of things, those are things like kernel upgrades and system refreshes, things like, hey, a file system is filling up, let's go up and clean it up automatically, right? Maybe it's a cloud cost savings play where you're trying to reduce the amount of systems that are always up and running to help with your cloud costs. Whatever it is, there's always these things that take you away from your focus. And focus is really important, right? In the United States, we call it getting in a groove. In Japan, they call it ikigai, right? Where there's that deep focus on one thing that you're doing. And it's like time doesn't exist in that, right? We've all had that opportunity, we've all had that time when we're deeply focused on something. But then all of a sudden, ding, a file system needs some help. Or ding, there's some new hot news out that needs to be patched, right? And you got to figure out what systems there are. So as you're watching today, I'm going to challenge you or ask you one question to keep in the back of your mind. If you had 1 hour extra in your day today, what would you do with that? But I want to challenge you a bit further. I want to take this not just on tasks. Don't think, hey, I'd like to, maybe do more, send out more emails or reply to phone calls or all that stuff. Instead, what could you do in that hour today to give you 2 hours tomorrow? Because you see, that's the start of your innovation journey, and that's the innovation with automation, right? And so as teams shift from being task-focused to innovation-focused, that's the talent transformation. So let's get into this a little bit more. At this time, I'd like to bring in our CEO, John Appleby. John, how you doing?
Hey, Tyler. Thanks so much for inviting me into the studio today.
Yeah.
It's great to be back, right?
Back in person, it's great.
I know. I mean, I feel like it started a little bit in July, and we had this insider conference, and that was the moment in time, and it sort of feels like 3 months ago, and we were actually really back to it. But even still, even in the last couple of weeks, I feel like there's a change in tempo, and offices are opening back up to visitors, and we're able to really get back and see people. And it's just such a different state of mind to be in compared to where it's been for the last 2 years. So super excited to be here, actually in the studio face-to-face together.
That's great. So we're talking today about hyper-automation. Can you go a little bit as to what we mean by hyper-automation? Because when we think automation in the SAP world, there's testing automation, there's RPA, which is the hot word. Is hyper-automation just another, big word right now?
So it is obviously a buzzword, but I really like it as a concept. And the reason is simple. If we think about our business as a set of business processes which connect together in a meaningful way to achieve things, and we previously thought about processes being, order to cash or procure to pay or hire to retire. But if you step above that and you think of your business now as a collection of these that connect together into one thing which enables shareholder value, revenue, profitability, all of the things which are the kind of end point of a business. And now we say we're going to look at that set of activities that happen, and now we're going to take an automation mindset to those. So we're going to change our way of thinking, and we're going to say, where across the business are there pain points that we can visualize, where we need to actually, where we can invest in automation and make improvements and think of it as one holistic environment. The moment we do that and we take that mindset, we can open our minds towards hyper-automation. And that shift in mindset from a static business process perspective, I'm going to optimize cash management, through to I'm going to optimize shareholder value. That's what hyper-automation is all about.
Okay. So let me ask them this. So today, hyper-automation is one part of it, but talent transformation is another. Can you connect those dots for us? How are those two coming together?
So you can't do one without the other. They are the same thing. Because to enable that mindset as a leader, you need to transform your own mind. And now to enable that down through your organization, you need to do talent transformation at your leadership team level and at the individual level of what each person is doing. And just, as a simple point of view, in our SAP operations world, we see a lot of resistance to automation because people think that can cause their individual role a problem. I don't see it that way at all, at least in our space. There is so much work to do and not enough people to do it. And therefore, that change in mindset of changing talent, so they're thinking about, instead of being operators, they're automators, that is the talent transformation that has to happen in our industry. I'm just giving an example. It's the same, I believe, everywhere.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important thing to think about. And one of the other areas to consider as well is environments aren't just the same as they used to be, right? It's not just a simple environment anymore, right? Environments are complex. SAP environments are not just, a couple servers in a data center anymore. There's connections everywhere, there's integrations a little bit. How does this all play into it as well now?
Well, I mean, so this is a story that's been happening for 30, 40 years now. I mean, we had this promise that, consolidation of assets in ERPs would bring massive simplification. And for a brief point in time in 1991 or 1991 to 2000, that was true. So people consolidated thousands of spreadsheets and point finance solutions into single core ERPs. But ever since then, it's only been getting more complicated. It got more complicated with the addition of, in our SAP world, the addition of modules, because you went beyond ERP and into supplier relationship management, supply chain management, warehouse management, human capital management, and these were then a proliferation of ERPs within ERPs. It then happened in the SAP world, at least with the acquisition of Top Tier. I'm still 20 years ago, by the way. And with Shai Agassi, who brought Java, he brought Business One. And then that continued through the 2000s with the acquisition of Sybase and Business Objects and then SuccessFactors. So we've got the SaaS applications. So not only now do we have these on-premise applications, we have the rise of the virtual private cloud as it was at the time, or just private clouds we call them now. And you've got those, you've got the SaaS applications, and now the rise of the hyperscalers. So we've got infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. And to add to that today, we have SAP Rise. And for the majority of customers, each of these additions brings complexity to the hybrid environment rather than simplicity. Simplicity is the goal, but in fact, what you end up with is proliferation.
Yeah. And so going back to the talent part of this then, you used to have, your IT operations or your basis team, whatever you want to call them. 5 years ago, it may have been 2 or 3 people, whatever your team size is. But now, the same people now have to manage these huge, complex environments.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it this way: if you're implementing, I was talking to a customer the other day, and they're implementing purchasing, so they're implementing Coupa. They could be just as well implementing Ariba. It doesn't matter. They don't get additional headcount within IT operations to deal with that. And you could say, well, hey, they don't need that. It's a SaaS application, so it doesn't need IT operations. Well, yeah, sure, but how are you getting your master data that relates to vendors out into that application? Well, you're doing it through an interface. Well, who's looking to see if that's working? And I was thinking of a great story when I worked for a large business, and I had a problem with healthcare, and I couldn't make a call into the healthcare provider to make an appointment. And it turns out that the master data connector that connected updates to information about birth dates had not been working for weeks, and they had no idea. And so for every employee in the company, if they had updated a birth date or anything else, that change hadn't gone out to the provider. And it wasn't until I opened a ticket in the HR system, it got then escalated to an IT ticket. Somebody did some root cause analysis. They found out that that master data connector had failed 2 weeks prior. And that's the problem with proliferation of hybrid, because there isn't any additional talent pool to manage all of that complexity.
Yeah. And you think too, when you, for some of these automations that are a little bit larger scale, like a refresh, it's not just one person running these as well, right? They might go to a DBA team, it might go to the OS level team, and there's breaks in time there that kind of, I guess you could say, slow things down and make this from a 12-hour process to a 2-week-long process as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I think about a customer we're talking to about that at the moment, and their need is fascinating, because they're actually implementing Workday, and so they're doing human capital transformation, and as a result, they need up-to-date information about employees in a non-production environment, so that they can implement this software. And it needs updating ideally every month, or every 2 weeks even would be perfect. And it takes 2 weeks to do that update. So the impact of not having that information is quite extreme. But you then think about the impact of taking that system down for 2 weeks. That means that you've lost 2 weeks of productivity. You've got a team of 100 people, and you're paying them $1,000 a day each. You're losing $100,000 for each day that's out. So, if you can, this is a transition to what comes next. But if you think about what that means to them, to be able to move from 2 weeks down to even over a weekend, it's going to make a huge difference to their ability to complete this business transformation. And that's before we get into the impact of the actual talent itself and the time it takes to do that.
So let me follow up with, so we've got kind of talked about the hyper automation, we're talking about the talent and all the people and that can be combined. I guess why now? Like why not delay this 2 years? Maybe we're gonna do an S4 conversion in 2 years. Why can't I just wait until then? Why start now?
I think the problem is today, and it's not in 2 years' time. We're talking to so many organizations, and they're staring down the double barrels of a 2027 deadline to get off SAP R3 or Business Suite, whatever they're on. And they've got whatever is going on in their business. And I was talking to a large consumer products organization the other day, and they were saying, we're not quite sure how we're going to achieve this, because we brought the concept of finance transformation to the business, and they've got other stuff going on. They're much more worried about ensuring profitability there are right now than they are about finance transformation. We know we need to get to S4, but we don't have a compelling reason to do so. And so automation and talent transformation is a way to free up those resources so that we can make that actually possible. I don't think that you can wait to do that.
Which makes sense. I get that. So let's say an organization's ready to go. Everyone's on board. We need to do this. Where do you begin? How do you start?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the hard question, right? And this is what I call the automation paradox. And I have a friend, he runs one of the big SAP systems in the world, and I called him up and I said, dude, your team's taking too long to implement our software. Can you hurry up? And he was like, look, it's really easy to say that. He said, we've got the same problem with test management automation. He's like, the problem is they're too busy to do it. And I said, but you got to get past that. And that is the biggest challenge of automation, is your key resources that have all the knowledge of all the stuff that you want to automate are the busiest people in the business. And the simple fact is you have to get over that. You have to get over the hump, because if you do, those people will never be freed up. They will be busy for the rest of their working lives. And there's no real easy way to say it. Is you just have to prioritize it, and you just have to say to the business, hey, you need to give us a little bit of space right now. We're going to put in some automation, and you're going to get the benefits back off that 10 times over. Because your example of the refreshes, it sounds banal, but that's taking up 20% of their time through the year. We can free all of that back up with automation, and that time comes back in the future. And it pays back over and over and over. Everything you automate is going to pay back to make those most critical assets less busy. So the simple thing is you have to suck it up.
Mm-hmm. It's like what I call the snowball effect, right?
Yep.
You kind of get the snowball moving in there and keep getting more time back and more time back and more time back, and it just took getting the ball rolling in the first place.
Yeah, you can think of it as the automation paradox, or you can think of it as the snowball effect.
Excellent. So I guess if we take it up a little bit and talk more about from like ERP leaders' standpoint, what are some things that you're hoping that people get out of today from a management point of view?
I've told this story 100 times, and I'll tell it 100 more. I always think in the meeting I had with Hasso Plattner, the chairman of SAP, sometime, I feel like it was 10 years ago, it might have been 8 years ago. And he said to me, John, I cannot believe that in 2012 or 2014, we still have to pay $1,000 a day to an SAP basis consultant to do these simple activities. And I quipped back at him and I said, Hasso, I said, you're out of touch. I said, it's now 2,000. And he didn't laugh. I thought it was funny. But anyway, yeah, you can laugh, thank you. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at the rest of the marketplace in 2022, if you look at even SuccessFactors, or if you look at S/4HANA public cloud or by design, and if you look across into all of those other applications like Salesforce and Workday, they've solved these problems. Workday can do a refresh in a day. They can do that. That's standard operating procedure. And so around 3 years ago, we sat down, and I sat down with our CTO, Bernd. You can tell him, ask him if this is true in a minute. But I sat down with him 3 years ago, and I said, we need to automate out all of this stuff which is taking up the time, because this is causing people to not be able to innovate and transform their businesses in an SAP context. I can't believe that nobody else has solved these problems, but we're going to go out and do them. So that's what we're here. And actually, for the people that are here, I just love to open your minds to think, what are those things which are slowing my business down that I don't think I can automate because they feel too complicated? And I hear people say, and our engineering team told us this, it's SAP, it's too complicated, it's not possible. It is possible. We're doing it. Those problems are the problems that we're solving. Bring us those problems and we'll help you automate them.
That's awesome. So John, I've got one last question for you, kind of diving right off what you just said. You speak with a lot of our customers as well, day in and day out. What are some of the greatest things that you hear? What are some of the things that our customers that have currently implemented automation, what are the things that they enjoy the best out of everything?
It brings me back, and I haven't heard this yet, but I know it's out there. It brings me back to a meeting I had, and we'd implemented a mobile app. And I'll then relate this back to us. And I met with the CIO, who was also the CHRO, which is weird, but kind of cool. And I said to him, what's the big benefit that you guys have had from this? He said, my executives team spend more time with their family. And he said, and the reason is that we used to sit in the office until 8 o'clock doing all of this work. I can now take it home, spend time with the family, and complete it in a fraction of the time on an iPad. And this is what we're seeing here out in the field, and we'll hear from a customer in a little while. My vision is that instead of 2 weeks of handover an activity from a DBA team to a basis team to a functional team, we're going to automate all of that. And one operator's still going to want to keep an eye on it because we're still paranoid. That's not going to change. But they're going to be able to kick it off when they leave work, and by the time they've had dinner at home, they're going to get a notification that says everything's okay. They're still going to trust but verify. They're still going to log into the system. but they're going to be logged into the system at 8 o'clock at night. They're going to look and getting back to their family. And so giving people time to do what we call about time to create, but it's also time with families. It's time to do whatever you want to do at home. That's what we're really all about.
Awesome. Makes complete sense. I want to bring in our Chief Customer Officer as well now, Brenton O'Callaghan, who's joining us from our Germany studio. Hey, Brenton, are you there?
Hello, guys. How are things? Live from the German-Swiss border.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic show so far, and it's great to see you, to see everything that we're talking about. But I want us to get a little bit more real, and I want us to kind of come out of the hypothetical stuff and really talk about what's happening in the real world. Because I love what you were saying, John. But I want to bring in just a fantastic customer, Manny Veleudan from Scott's Miracle-Gro, the manager of the basis team. I want to bring Manny on to really talk about what this means for Scott's and kind of what they're doing in this space. So Manny, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And you know, we're going to talk a little bit, for those who are wondering what you're going to get out of this session, we're going to talk about the strategic initiatives that Scott's are undertaking. We're going to talk a little bit about how life has changed for Manny and the team and through their AI ops journey. And then let's get the advice from the person who's actually doing this on the ground. Let's hear what Manny has to say for budding automators, let's say. So Manny, why don't you start with, from the start, tell us a little bit about Scott's, tell us a bit about your role and what you're focused on.
Sure, Brandon. So we are based out of Columbus, Ohio. Scott's is one of the major lawn care company. I've been with this company and started since 2008. Currently, I manage the SAP Basis team, and most of the SAP operations in and around cloud and automation is carried out by my team here at Scott's.
Fantastic. And what are your strategic initiatives that you're focused on? So you mentioned cloud. There's a move to the cloud. Where are you in your strategic initiative journey?
Yeah, so we started our cloud journey, digitization, almost like 6 years back. So we have our entire SAP workforce running out of AWS, public cloud, and there are a few more initiatives that's currently happening. So we just went live with our SAP TMS, which is Transport Management System on S/4HANA, as well as yard logistics systems. And then there is more coming up with our actual workforce moving into S/4HANA. So there is a journey that we have just kicked off with SAP as a customer here at Scott's.
Fantastic. And how's it going so far? Going well?
Good. I would say basically like the initial workshop has been like, spellbounding. We have been learning a lot in this journey. Now that we have our hands-on TMS S4, it's more resonating with us, like what's up for us with our SAP ERP solution transforming into S4.
Brilliant. And I want to bring us back to a little bit about what John and Tyler were talking about there, which is we're talking about connecting observability with automation using workflows. So in that context, what made you decide to embark on an AI ops journey, a journey where you wanted to remove some of that kind of legacy manual task from your team? What kicked that off?
Absolutely. So again, like most of the companies, we have an on-site offshore model. And most of the time, my team works especially on the day-to-day operations. And one of the key challenges when it comes to the basis team that I have seen is like, our members don't really get hands-on projects, like live projects of either it be moving to the cloud or like, any kind of upgrades and kind of automations within the systems. It's usually done from outside our company. Like we bring in consultants and have them done. And typically it's happening this way because, you really can't take your hands off of your day-to-day operation in your system. So you have to have some kind of automation. So that's when my management asked me to invest my time to find out like what are things that can be automated. And the very first thing that, came to my mind was monitoring. Like, system monitoring was all done through Google Sheets, right? So at the end of the day, I had like almost 4 times in 24 hours, we'll have different teams from India as well as from the US kind of do an automation and kind of do a monitoring. And this is just like for that specific period of time and just update some Google Sheets or Excel sheet on top of it. So this was not something we were doing efficiently. So that's where we started our journey. We started our partnership with Avantra to see how we can automate monitoring. And it's been a wonderful journey for the past 2 years so far. And I would say like my 10 of my SAP systems, along with my SaaS solutions, have been completely out, monitored using the Avantra tool. And we have a successful integration with ServiceNow. So what that means is like, it's just not monitoring, it's also ticketing system that gets into, alerts and other specifications that we need as a team. So that's been a great success story for us.
And it's exactly what we're talking about, isn't it? It's giving back time to the team, so they're not focused on those day-to-day activities, and then you've connected the automated monitoring to your ticketing system, so you really don't need to worry about anything until something's going wrong or something's about to go wrong, and it's kind of the holy grail. But I feel like it's only step one, and obviously this is a leading question, but I know that you and the team were working last night, so there was some of our team and some of your team were working last night on some really cool and exciting stuff. I won't spoil it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
So definitely. So, our first phase was on monitoring, right? Like the next thing that we really took up was on system refresh. So I joined here at Scott's 2008, and it was an Oracle system close to 7 terabyte, and our ERP system refresh would take 3 days. And again, this is between data centers, and all the work, the manual work that we have been doing was almost 3 days to get a refresh done. So from there, last night, we did one of our automations of an ERP system, a test trial run, and it got completed in less than 3 hours. So you can see the journey here, right, from 3 days to 3 hours. That's what it does.
I mean, that's fantastic. And I'll tell you a little secret. When we heard the outcome of the refresh, and it's been fantastic partnering with you to test this automation as we were building up to the release. When the team heard about the successful refresh and they heard 3.5 hours from 3 days, they went, we can go faster. We can go faster. So I think even from our side, we're hoping to even go further and faster with everything that we're trying to do with the system refresh and beyond. And we're going to hear more about that in a minute. So, I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. And what does that mean for the team? Like, what was the reaction from the team on the ground?
So that's the beauty of automation here, right? Like once you see this, like for the same kind of exercise that you would sit in front of your laptop for more than like 12 hours a day, kind of getting it done. And now you just click a button and just move away, and then you just get an alert or an update saying that your refresh is done in 3 days. That's like, one thing my team has been telling me is that they want more hands-on, right? At the end of the day, if you ask any basis guys, it's like, when do I get to do my S4HANA conversion, right? When do I get to do my cloud migration aspect? So this is what it really enables us as a team. My team is getting more focused on real-time projects than doing, the day-to-day operations. That's where, refresh is one bigger chunk of activity that we do. It's completely off the table for us right now.
Brilliant. And I love how this all, comes back to, again, what John and Tyler were talking about, which is the human aspect. If your team aren't sitting there having to log in at 2 a.m. to move a refresh forward or whatever the case may be, it's improving their quality of life. It's improving the time with their families. And I just love that story, which is just fantastic. Manny, I have only one final question for you, which is, you've told us the story of how you came on this AIOps journey. It was a discussion between you and your management about getting back some of that time. What's your advice to budding automators and those who want to get started? What's your one thing you think they should be thinking about?
Right. So this is just like, as John said earlier, right? It's the initial first step. That's what matters. Getting automated. Everything in SAP can be automated. Like, I'm completely intrigued by the fact that, I would really like to see business process monitoring automation coming up next in my to-do list. But, the biggest factor here is that, you can get your guys to do more real stuff than to kind of do a mundane task, a day-to-day task. They are literally bored with that. And especially things in cloud, when you run SAP on cloud, the limit is like, it's completely unlimited. You can do a lot of operations, a lot of things can be automated, and then there is a lot of more interesting stuff you get to do as part of it.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I love the fact that you said everything in SAP can be automated. I felt our CTO, who's sitting next to me, kind of go, yes, when you said that. Manny, thank you so much for joining us today and telling your story and telling your story for the community. Thank you for being such an awesome customer for us here at Avantra and for your partnership. We're looking forward to seeing what we're going to do next with you. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Brendan. Thank you.
Fantastic. And speaking of Bernd Angus, Bernd, I think it's time we've spoken to a customer. Maybe it's time for us to pivot ever so slightly, and maybe let's talk about partnerships, because in your role with what you do, I think you're closest to some of our partners and some of the exciting things that we're doing. And with what Manny just said, everything can be automated. I think you're about to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, exactly. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me and introducing me. There's Avantra, and we are the experts in SAP operations, right? And SAP automation. But there are other vendors out there who do an incredibly good job, and it's really a pleasure to have Markus Koch, which is the technical enablement manager from SAP, now shortly on stage. And I can as well say it was a pleasure meeting Markus in person, most recently at the German annual users group conference, right? So it's always good to meet Markus at the booth. Then you can get one of these nice red hats, right, Markus?
Yep, of course. That's one of the typical things we have as giveaways. And yeah, we all got one really well manufactured when we joined the company.
Excellent. And Markus, you're gonna tell us a little bit on Ansible and how you can simplify SAP operations with Ansible and of course with Avantra.
Yes, thanks. So yeah, so my name is Markus Koch. I work for Red Hat since 2010 and a couple of years in the SAP space, and yeah, and I always had a focus on IT operations. I have old days, ITIL certifications, etc. So and I always had a focus on automation. So for those of you who do not know Red Hat, here's a little overview. Red Hat has been the first Linux distribution SAP software was running on. And we are looking back into a 23 years relationship and co-development with SAP. So today, more than 310 out of the Fortune 500 companies rely on SAP and Red Hat to run their business. We are getting more and more customers each and every year, each and every month even. So, and we, Red Hat, we are the only open source vendor who is able to provide our SAP customers an end-to-end experience when running SAP software across infrastructures, across the whole SAP portfolio. So today's focus is on automation. So while automation has played a more or less important role at customers in the past decade, it is one of the key technologies in the digital transformation age. Today, almost anybody simplifies their jobs by using some kind of automation, be it a simple script, bash script, Perl script, or whatever, or more sophisticated or even proprietary automation solutions provided, for example, by network vendors. But automation has already become a standard in different departments or domains. Today, it's still focused on automating a technical task such as server provisioning or a network configuration rollout, etc. There's a lot more what you can think of in the detail. So the goal we want to achieve is a true collaborative approach between these islands of automation, where we do not focus on a single technical implementation, but on the whole business process and how it is implemented. We call this at Red Hat a strategic automation. Avantra uses the term hyper-automation for it. And together, we can today form this end-to-end approach in the SAP space. So our automation technology is called Ansible, and Ansible's primary goals are simplicity and ease of use with a strong focus on security, portability, and reliability. At the foundation of Ansible automation platform is Ansible Core, which provides a very simple, or the simple nature of the Ansible language to enable a broad selection of users to become functional in a short space of time. You can learn Ansible in hours when you have ever done any programming language. The power of a single universal language across multiple technology domains, so that people from other domains understand each other. And it's an agentless model that allows a seamless integration with a variety of technology platforms. In terms of Linux, for example, we just piggyback on existing SSH infrastructures. So this concept and the modular design, together with its already large repository of collections, there are more than 130 already out, enables an integrated and comprehensive infrastructure management for servers, network, security devices. So a strong focus on the infrastructure. And so the Ansible Automation Platform product enables an enterprise to operate and manage with Ansible at scale, complexity, and flexibility. So that's what's required by a modern enterprise. A Red Hat Insights, a tool that we enabled for free for our customers, scans a system for compliance, known security issues, and other configuration issues of the operating system. And in case of a finding, Red Hat Insights creates an Ansible playbook that can be executed to mitigate the potential issue before your business is affected. The playbook then can be scheduled and applied with Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform or Red Hat Satellite at a planned time, so that the business is secured and not interrupted. With Ansible Automation Platform and Satellite, you will be able to maintain your complete software releases, your subscriptions, perform patching and other day two operations on the operating system level, like adding users, changing configs, etc., in a very structured and documented manner. Infrastructure as code is a keyword here. And what our tools can do best in the infrastructure, Avantra can really do for the SAP application, as we heard before. Due to our open integration capabilities, we can already integrate our products easily and create the earlier mentioned end-to-end automation for day one and day two operations, which help customers to achieve these strategic or hyper automation capabilities in their SAP landscape. So in short, Avantra and SAP are better together, with Red Hat Ansible Automation being the leader in the OS and infrastructure level automation, and Avantra providing additional SAP application knowledge with SAP certified integrations. Examples where this work perfectly together is, for example, an end-to-end S/4HANA deployment, where Ansible deploys the infrastructure and the application, etc., and then Avantra does the SAP patching, the security baseline, etc. And so this can be, for example, extended to a full SAP system copy process, where a user goes to the ServiceNow console and requests a system copy. Then we trigger, then an Ansible playbook can be triggered to prepare the new instances with the OS, the database, the SAP template, etc. Let's call this, for example, a PO2 installation or whatever is feasible. Then Ansible completes the OS optimization, security settings, system hardening, clustering, or whatever is needed for the infrastructure. Then it deploys the Avantra agents and returns the data of the SAP system, or hands over the responsibility to Avantra. Avantra then takes over the SAP system management, completes the system refresh from P01 to P02. Avantra monitors the complete success and then notifies the user in ServiceNow, hey, your system copy is complete, you can use it. And here, Bernd, with regards to this, you have some brand news to share with the regard to the integration, I guess.
Exactly, right. So this was an older slide we had in one of the sessions we had together. In fact, we can now announce an even more incredible and better way of integration to Ansible. I'm going to talk a little bit later here on detail together with Brendan. Just one comment. This is exactly it, right? The better together and end-to-end story. Because we at Avantra, why should we reinvent the wheel and solve a lot of problems you guys at Red Hat or the Ansible community has already solved, right? So we want to just combine these two, the power of both platforms. And this is, we're going to have an example later on in our demo. But Marcus, thanks a lot for your insights today on Red Hat and Red Hat Linux and all the products you have in portfolio. We're going to continue now with a little product demo, right, Brendan?
Nothing little about it. Now we get to the fun stuff, and I think now we get to pray to the demo gods that when we're in the system, everything is going to work the way it should, and if it doesn't, that'll be fun as well. And we have a lot to get through in this session. I think we have about 20 minutes or so to make it through. A quick reminder to everyone watching, if you have questions, please do put them in the chat. We're collecting them and we're going to be answering them as we go through the rest of the session. And love questions, especially the hard ones. So feel free to give us those. And don't forget as well to fill in that survey as well at the end to win the Apple Watch. So, Bernd, enough talking. I want to see the inside of a system, and I want to see what you've just been talking about, this Ansible integration, because I'm really excited about this one. This is the one I keep hearing from customers about. I know even Manny's excited about this one. So, let's see it.
Okay. Before we jump into the Ansible integration, let me first talk a little bit on system refresh, because John has introduced it.
You're going to keep me waiting.
Yeah, I keep you waiting a bit, right? So what we just kicked off, right, when the summit began, was a real system refresh procedure. And
so let's go into the system. Let's have a look.
Let's have a look right here, right? So this is a complete system refresh we did here. So you see it as our execute with restore. It's actually still running, but it should be now in its ending phase, right?
So while you're pulling that up, so when we heard about this earlier from Manny, he talked about his 7 terabyte system taking 3 days to do a system refresh, bringing that down to 3.5 hours that when they were using it last night. So this is exactly the procedure you're showing us now, right?
This is exactly the procedure we yesterday ran at Scott's for another time, right? It's just a much smaller system, and only for demo purpose it takes 35 minutes. But we had a similar success story at another customer, right? Where Pierre, our head of SAP engineering, was. And that's really interesting, because same story. They used 4 elapsed days and people working over weekends, right, to get this done. And we bring it down to 3.5 hours, right? 3.5 hours. And then the head of SAP approached Pierre and asked, really, 3.5 hours? And he was asking like, okay, but now we can run this every month. And Pierre said, yes. And then the guy was asking, but can we run it every week? Yes, it's fully end-to-end automated. You can do this.
You could even go a step further, and I was actually talking to a customer about this a couple of days ago. You could even go a step further and put the activity in the hands of the business users, the finance owners, for example.
Exactly.
Give them a giant red button and say, you hit that, 3 hours later, you're going to have your QA system with the latest data.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a game changer.
And John mentioned these the customer we are working with this HCM transformation, and how it can't be that they are out of the system is out of commission.
Right.
And we see here with these 3.5 hours how we can support the agile development, right? basically you have then fresh data all the time. You can test with the most recent data, and you can have much quicker deployment cycles
Completely.
to your system, and you can release in confidence to your production system.
And
even
this is
what it is about.
The story John was telling earlier, about that customer. If you're talking about, comparing to SaaS solutions that can say, yeah, we do system refreshing in a day, we're now dragging SAP into the same, and in some cases even faster, which is just fantastic for the strategic initiatives within the business. And again, going back to our whole thing of creating time to complete those strategic initiatives.
Yeah. So let us have a look here. So that's a whole end-to-end process, right? So including system isolation, all these funny stuff with logical system transformation, import, export, all these kind of things. It's currently running here, but I can go back to execution, which has been done a little before. So here, let us check the log, because I promised the SAP team to show this one. That's one of the latest improvement they did. Sorry, I actually need to open it a little bit different. So here is the details about export, import, and this data then can be used to maybe leave some tables away. So this can be configured, right?
Sure.
So this is how the system refresh can be tailored to the need of certain users.
Because let's face it, and this is a really important point about our enterprise add-ins like this one. They're designed to be tailored to your environment. They're designed to be extended by customers to achieve what they're looking for. I love system refresh. You got in that lab of yours at the moment that we can talk about?
Well, first let us finish system refresh.
Okay, fine. I'm jumping ahead.
Okay. No, that's perfect. So what we did now with Avantra 23, released today.
Okay.
By the way, yeah.
Big news.
Big news. Is we provided new workflows for system refresh with this optimized import-export procedure.
Mm-hmm.
We are now as well supporting Oracle and SAP ASE.
Fantastic.
Right?
What about HANA?
HANA?
It's a little used database. Little used database.
You mean this funny in-memory database?
That's the one.
Okay,
yeah. It's only a small thing.
Well, that's of course the first one we have been supporting. HANA was certainly the first one we supported, and the team is we have DB2 and MS SQL, by the way, in the pipeline.
Fantastic.
So this is going to be supported very soon. There are many changes to the system refresh procedure and many improvements.
And again, just to reiterate, this is all powered by the Avantra's automation engine. So you see everything that we're doing within those automations. So you can learn from them, you can extend them, you can do whatever you need to do to make them work, or even do other cool things in your environment.
Exactly. So we are very happy with the progress we did and the success so our automation engine with all these things we're delivering here. Go to the Bright Talk, then also our users can use the Bright Talk session to see more.
Sure, and actually that's a really good point. I meant to say it at the front, at the top. Thank you for reminding me. So if you want to learn more about anything that we're showing here, Bernd has kindly recorded a much longer and technically in-depth session. If you go to our YouTube channel, which is the Avantra channel on the YouTube, you will find our hour-long technical deep dives into Avantra 23, again released today. It's available for download. It's available in German and in English. But back to you in the system, Bernd. What else are you going to show us?
Yes. So, for example, we have other automations as well available now for our enterprise customers. So, if you look here, this BC patch update procedure, for example, it uses, by the way, as well our file transfer. So these are things we have been adding to our automation engine.
That was a big one that was asked for by customers, the ability to send files as part of the automations to remote agents.
Exactly, that's very easy integrated into our platform. And here you see, for example, an automation, it's called BC patch update, just patch the spam, so the updater itself, and the support tools, and HR packages can be deployed as well. So this is a major step forward, right? And the team is always working on a lot of stuff here. For example, here we see BC maintain other profiles. This is used in various. So these are, by the way, steps in what we call a step library. So these are little or here you see these little pieces of code. We are actually delivering code here, so,
Yes.
so that people can look at it, can learn from it, can see it actually.
Before you jump off that one, because I love the story behind this, which is quite a simple workflow, let's face it, but there's a security story which I love telling on this one, which is you have some automated security checks in the system. You recognize that maybe password policies aren't set correctly and you want to update them. You can actually automate the detection of the problem, the rectification of the problem using this workflow, and then the releasing of the system back to users in a more secure state, which
Exactly.
is the complete end-to-end scenario that people are looking for.
Yeah, you are talking on this use case here.
Exactly.
So what we're talking here is, think about an MSP, and they get a new customer, or a large enterprise is deploying new SAP systems. And then Avantra would automatically observe automation, right? Bring it up. Hey, these parameters are not on the latest security policies, or are not according to the latest security policies. And then we combine the automation to fix this.
Yeah.
In exactly like an SAP administrator would do it. So it will create a new version of the profile,
Yep.
and restart the system if it's necessary. This can all be automated.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
And we see it as well. I now can spoil a little bit in an automation where we use an Ansible workbook.
Fantastic.
There we will see this BC maintain our profiles once again. Right.
More to come later.
Now, integration, by the way, is an important topic, right?
Yes.
Especially when we talk on end-to-end automation. And I want to show you a little bit more here. So if I go to BC user, these are very simple automations. Like for example, this BC user create. There's a step, and that's basically here you see as well our low-code platform. Yeah?
Sure, very
it's
important.
code, but it's very, very easy code. You can work with it very easily. But let me go back to the workflow. That's a workflow, one-step workflow to create a user somewhere.
Yep.
Right. And by the way, on DSAC, it was very funny. We have the same for deleting a user, where some person said, "Oh, because they have many distributed customers, I can use this if an employee leaves to delete all his users in all these systems of the MSP's customers."
But you said integration, and immediately, and we didn't actually talk about this one earlier on, so my mind is now jumping to what's possible here. And if you combined this with, for example, a ServiceNow integration, a workflow kicked off from ServiceNow,
and this is exactly what I want to show, right?
It's almost like we planned it.
Yeah. We built for a customer.
I'm going to jump in here for a second, because I've been watching in the background. You're thinking the demo gods are not smiling on you with your refresh. It's waiting for you to confirm the manual step. So whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready.
Well spotted, John. I actually had spotted that, but I didn't bring it up. But yes, there's a manual step in that workflow you were showing us.
That's why we have people watching.
That's why
exactly.
I'm gonna. I was just the team texted me. I thought I'd let you know. So I'm gonna hop off now and let you guys get back to it.
I go back in an instant, confirm the manual step, and then the automation will be finished. Let me do this ServiceNow thing very quickly. So a customer approached us and they said, yeah, whenever we create a user in SAP system, there's a ServiceNow request. So this is here. And then
you have to log in again.
Log in again. Well,
you see, now that John appeared, all the demo gods are going to start not smiling on us.
I don't think so. Right? the gods will come back. So and then this user is requested in ServiceNow, then approved, and then the ticket this request is being picked up by a basis guy, and he goes manually to a system to create this user.
Sure.
Right? And then these people ask us, hey, can you automate this? And we said, yes, we can, right? So I need to log in once again. But before I do this, maybe I do it right. Let me go here to these approvals. Approvals. So I'm going to show you a previous request and the
approval required.
Exactly. So if I open this request here, you can actually see this was a previous request, and this user then has been created automatically by Avantra.
Fantastic.
And this has been triggered with the ServiceNow flow designer. So we designed a flow that the ServiceNow has a really great no-code and low-code platform. And if you look at the details here, you can actually see how this
is all put together.
And how this automation has been calling Avantra actually and running our workflow, right? And then came back with the job ID, and you can actually see the whole status. You have seen it has been successfully.
What I love about this, Bernd, and it's a very simple scenario. Let's face it, it's one of the most simple scenarios in an SAP world. But if you got 10 of these a week, like think of the time you're saving by completely automating this end to end. And over the period of a year, you don't even need to worry about creating users because it's all handled automatically. I mean, that is absolutely what we're trying to achieve. And, I like to link it back to our tagline. It's creating time to build, creating time to innovate. That's what this is creating.
This is exactly it. And many mentioned it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of creating a user, you can as well have ordering a system copy. And Markus mentioned it as well, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, but now let me go
hit the button.
Yeah,
because I think John wants us to make sure that we hit the button for our system refresh.
Yeah, let me bring this up again. System execute. Yes, here we go. Execute with restore, and here we see the executions. And this is the one here, still progress. I'm opening this one.
And absolutely
please
eagle-eyed.
Confirm system de-isolation. Yeah, this is somehow a little bit, let's say, a security step the team has put in, because you can mess up such a system when you log on too early, and that's why we have this step in. And then when a press is now confirm, then the users are being unlocked, and all the users can unlock. So I'm pressing this button here now. And now it goes on. Users will be unlocked, and then we have the system ready.
And what we're looking at here as well is the latest Avantra, which was released today. Just to recap, we've released Avantra 23 today. So the server, the agents, and the transports are all available for download in the normal place. And I do like the fact that we've now split the automation area out into its own section of the product within the UI, which just is absolutely fantastic. So that's going to complete.
That's now top front.
Yeah, it's up there.
Well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely love this. Are we ready to move to talk about Ansible at this point? Because I really want to see
only if I can present one slide before. Right?
A slide.
It's a live demo, but one slide. I hope this is okay, because I want to talk a little bit here on our Ansible integration. So it's a two-way integration, actually. From Avantra to Ansible, we have two integrations. One is a real simple one, right?
Yeah.
Because we are using the Ansible, the Red Hat product, Ansible controller. And this builds all a nice environment, everything around Ansible, and makes it really easy to use. And of course, Markus is happy because it pays his salary. Because it's
very
a
important.
Paid product. But yes, here we simply talk with REST, and we created a nice integration here. There's as well a direct integration to Ansible Core, where you can call workbooks directly. This is something I will show and a log. So that's the integration Avantra to Ansible. But we as well have an integration from Ansible to Avantra.
Brilliant.
Right? And this is the one you've seen on Markus, one of the slides from Markus, SSH, SOAP, API, GraphQL, and these kind of things. But we thought, okay, make it even simpler to work from Ansible workbook directly with Avantra. So it always depends which automation platform is the leading system.
Yes.
So there's several scenarios. And therefore we created an Avantra Ansible module. That's a free module you can download and integrate in your Ansible workbook.
Brilliant.
And then you have really very easy. So we take away the API programming, the complexity.
Excellent.
And then you can do various actions on Avantra directly from Ansible.
And we've made enhancements to the core as well. So we now, for example, have full support for API keys, for example, which has been introduced, which is all helping with some of these integrations. Yeah. Fantastic stuff. Let's go back into the system. I'd love to see what it looks like in the real world.
Yeah, you want to have the risk.
I really do.
Okay, so conscious of time, we are not running an automation, but we will show you one. So let me here filter on Ansible. So what we built is a scenario like, think of, I want to explain the use case and what we're doing here. It's called Scale Up SAP Server. Now think of a project team implementing a new application, right? And they are close to the go live. And then they start with load tests that they want to figure out, okay, is everything running fast enough? And then they realize, we should need a few more CPUs and maybe a little bit more memory. And yeah, here we have the issue as well with the right and tight sizing in the cloud.
Sure.
If they would simply say, okay, let's simply go for a big system, it will definitely make the CFO unhappy.
Just a little bit.
Say, okay, let's choose a real big system in infrastructure as a service, and here we go. So by this automation, they can step by step find the right sized system, right? And what we did here is, because we're thinking here, people might already have Ansible playbooks to deploy servers. In this case, it's GCP, and but this in this case they might already, right? That's YAML. That's an Ansible workbook, right? Sorry, an Ansible playbook. I keep telling it wrong because I keep messing up workflow. And it's all right.
We have a swear jar over here. It's fine.
It's good that it's written here. And then Avantra simply stops the SAP system, calls the Ansible, makes some preparations, and then puts in the required variables into this playbook, scales up the GCP virtual machine, waits a bit, and then start the SAP system again. And then actually we use Avantra, as we've seen before. I told you I'm coming back with this busy upper profiles, maintain upper profiles. What we're doing here is, because we have more CPUs, more memory, and then we look at the machine type. So we have the variants here. If you look at it, here we could scale up here this to 8. You simply put in the machine type in GCP you want, you run the automation, and depending on the machine type, Avantra is then deciding, okay, I'm allocating this amount of this work processes, or even change memory settings. We know there's auto configuration, right? But some people might have
to tweak it
ideas
based on what you've selected. That's absolutely fantastic.
So this is, and here I can show you one execution of it actually. So it really works.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, some minor issues when starting the SAP system.
And one of the things as well I love about this, we're coming at this from the SAP side. We're SAP automators. That's what we do for a living. And I know that a lot of people who are speaking with us today are on this journey themselves. But there's the reverse, which is we have the automation natives who are out there already with all their Ansible playbooks. And guess what? They can now reach into SAP systems through Avantra and through our Ansible plugin and retrieve even more information, achieve different things beyond what they were capable of doing while just looking around an SAP system.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it really is on all sides, which is just absolutely fantastic and exciting.
Yeah. So here are as well the steps we are creating in our step library. So these are little components, right?
Sure.
How you can launch an Ansible controller job. Again, that's absolutely low code here.
Yeah.
And you see as well how we are doing it. You can tweak it if you need to change something, right?
Because every SAP environment is unique. We know this. We've been in the SAP industry long enough. Yeah. So this is not a surprise.
By the way,
yes,
we are very proud on our debugger here.
Oh, and I've been using this actually myself, and I know I've been using it with some customers. And this allows you to step through the code line by line within the Chrome debugger.
And it can run somewhere far away in your network environment. So it's routed through our agent master protocol directly to your Chrome window. But it will be demoed again in the BrightTalk session.
Absolutely. Fantastic. There's one last thing I want us to cover, because in the interest of time, I don't want to dwell too much more on the Ansible stuff, as interesting as it is. We've been talking about helping folks visualize their landscape and understand their landscape in a better way. And, we do a good job of this today, but I believe you've got some news around enhancements to the user experience of how you monitor and manage the landscape.
Absolutely. So I'm really proud now to press this button, which is still, it says try our new UX. This will change in 23, I promise.
Excellent.
Right? I hope that my whole development team is now looking forward to hearing this. Good. So, yeah, we've been working our new UI. So our customers know we are working on a new UI.
For quite some time, and actually a few months ago, the team released the first version of what you're about to show us now, which of course is the dashboards, and all this kind of stuff. So, your resolution is playing havoc.
No, it looked different, but look this way. I can actually move this around and show a little bit how this works. Right?
Fantastic.
It should have been. It should have looked different, but anyway.
The team is probably playing a trick on you.
This is again demo god, right?
Oh, of course.
But it's really cool here. So if I click here and I change the settings, for example, it's been updated in real time.
Oh,
right?
Fantastic.
Here we have the strange thing that system size are going down, but this is because of our
demo system, we keep refreshing the data in it.
Exactly. So we added as well sections here to the dashboards, so you can
collapsible sections.
Filter and see what's most interesting for you. So that's dashboards. So
there's a new button. I like the look of the new button.
And this is exactly here. So let me zoom in once again a little bit. We added something we call landscape browser, right? And there will be a list and a tree view. It looks similar to what we used to have in the classic UI, but it's really a complete new user experience, right? So you can filter, you can, these selectors, it's a concept in Avantra you can use here, but you can as well here, for example, go to the tree view, and a typical use case, it is something somebody would want to look at the production SAP systems of a certain customer, right? Here we have customer Avantra, there's as well a customer office, integration development, Avantra agentless, for example. And you could as well here is click on SAP systems, and you can then further filter. Yeah, for example, here let me click on production, and here, for example, you see system SA and SA1. And if I click here, right, you have all the information, the most important information here directly at your fingertips, right?
Brilliant.
And yeah, for servers, you would see the cloud interface, for example. Yeah, if I go back to.
And I actually, what I really love about the server interface, which I know you're going to show here now in a second, is the fact that if you get to see what's on that server, what's associated with that server,
exactly,
so easily. Like we can see SAP instances there, as we've expanded it, and that's just absolutely fantastic to see dependencies.
And we are trying as well that this can be tweaked, right? So the user can then change this at a later point in time. Yeah, absolutely. And if I go to the SAP system once again, so here I choose a production system. Some experienced users of Avantra might spot something if I click on daily checks here, because there will be, I think, about 10 new daily checks. We work with customers on it. So we are still not giving up or ignoring our roots where we come from, which is monitoring. I like to call it observer automation these days, because I like to have this. This is actually describing it better.
It is. Monitoring is
a nice word, of course. So here you see quite a number of significant new checks out of the box.
And it's not just SAP. There's also new checks on PostgreSQL. There's so much. I was reading the release notes earlier, just to kind of get a sense, and I was overwhelmed with actually how long the release notes were. And I know Oliver, our project manager, spent a long time kind of collating them because there was just so much being packed into Avantra 23. It really is fantastic. Bernd, this
I
is.
think it takes him more time to write the blog.
I think so. He's not an
But
expert.
release notes is coming out of our software tracking system.
Exactly, exactly. Bernd, this has been a fantastic tour of Avantra 23, the new Ansible integration, the enterprise add-ins, the system refresh. We had that fantastic story from Manny, bringing, was it 3 days down to 3.5 hours so far, I might add. I know that the team are excited about getting that even lower. This is just all fantastic stuff and stuff our customers have been asking for.
Maybe one more thing, right? We are not stopping.
Exactly.
We just released Avantra 23.
Mm-hmm.
The teams can take a breath now, but not for that long.
2 days.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
No, we'll continue, right? Especially with the new UI.
Yes.
Right. So the automation. Think about all you've seen today. So the automation we've shown in the classic UI. Think about this. The same experience in our new UI, right? So automation builder, automation runner, all with this similar to what we've done to the dashboards. I can't wait to see this and give this to our customers.
And I think what's clear to me is that this is the release for the automation native in the SAP world. This is the one that you can pretty much do anything with your SAP environment with. Bernd, thank you so much for taking us through this. We've actually been getting lots of questions coming through, and I've been kind of seeing the chat scroll by as we've been talking. So I'm going to toss it back to Tyler in Philadelphia to take us through the next section. Tyler,
Awesome.
back to you.
Thanks, Brenton. And Bernd, that stuff is just incredible. It's awesome to see not only the new UI, but a lot of the new automations. And to be honest, John and I have been talking here for a couple minutes, or actually throughout the whole thing here. There's a couple things we wanted to circle back on before we go to the question panel here. So, John, let's start off with Manny, right? So when we started with Manny, he started off with saying, we first came to Avantra because of monitoring, and we've evolved from there. Can you talk a little bit about, what that evolution is? Because I think that is one of the most important things for SAP automation is monitoring.
Yeah, and it's also a great place to start, right? Because if you think about the old days, and you've got enough gray hair or not hair to know this, we used to get up in the morning and we used to have a list of things, and we had a checkbook, and you'd go through each system, and you'd have a spreadsheet and a Word document, and you'd check, and you'd put a tick box manually. And so you used to spend hours and hours, and that still happens in a lot of places, but I know you and I have both done that in our far distant past, I assume at least. And so, monitoring automation or observability, as we call it in 2022, is absolutely critical, because that's how you get the time to actually invest in other things. So quite often we say to our customers, you want to crawl, walk, and run, and get observability running first. And there's some really important reasons why. And the first one of those is that you need a configuration management database of SAP. And one of the problems we have with Avantra is knowing what customers have in their landscapes. And so one of the benefits of observability is you have to get a catalog of what you've got, and it has to be right. You have to know what is a development system, what's a test system, what's a production system. You have to do the classifications. And so now you then overlay onto that, configuration management. Are things as they ought to be? Are the parameters right? Did somebody set a debug parameter which is going to fill up a log file, which is going to blow up a disk, which is going to take a system down? And so, the basics of configuration management and databases and observability give you a foundation for automation that makes all of that stuff easy to do later. So it is a great thing to do to focus on that first and get that done.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough when we talk about automation being Avantra is the monitoring we do going into an automation and coming out of an automation. So in other words, we're checking, is this the right kernel update before we actually put the kernel in the right system? Yeah. After the kernel, did everything come up okay, right? Yeah, SAP's up and running, but is everything running as it should be? If not, it requires that observability to say, okay, this something's not right. Or even going into a refresh, right? Are all the passwords in place? All that stuff ready to go? Sorry, I'm cutting you off, but I get excited about this stuff.
That's so totally cool. It. Well, let me put it back onto you. How many times have you installed the wrong kernel from a different operating system? Like you put, guilty. Everyone who's done that, put their hand up. The Basel studios got their own thing going on. But yeah, we've all been there. We've all got it wrong. And Avantra doesn't get it wrong because it checks, is the system running? Did we have permission to take it down? Did we do the change management process? And then all those technical steps get done automatically every time. It will not, if you downloaded the wrong kernel and put it in the wrong place, it will not install it. It'll tell you got the wrong one. And I keep pushing Bernd, can we please get it so it automatically downloads the right one? Hint, hint. So
You don't want much.
I don't want much.
It's the context, isn't it? Monitoring and scripts and automation scripts without context, they're just scripts. So why not make sure that you have all the information before you do the execution? And that's just so important. And we're hearing that from our customers time in, time out.
Yeah, so the engineering team tells me SAP is giving us a little bit hard time in automating the downloads. But maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future.
It's good having you guys back. So hey,
We kind of forced our way back in there because we wanted to make points.
Yeah, I figured, yeah. So we've been talking about automation a lot today, but one of the things we haven't really discussed is the day one versus day two automation. So I guess I just want to throw it out to, not to anyone in specific here, to all three of you guys. Maybe you guys talk a little bit about what is day one automation, what does that look like with Avantra, and what's, in my mind, more importantly, day two operations with automation, and what does that look like as well?
Do you want to define those, Tyler, just so we make sure what we're talking about? Because
Yeah.
otherwise people are going to say different things.
That's true, yeah, that's a fair point. So day one being standing up net new systems, right? So can we automate standing up an SAP environment? Day two is really, you now have that environment, it's off to the business, they're using it. What are the things we can automate? So maybe talk a little bit about the benefits of those two.
I'll grab that and I'm going to throw it to Bernd because I've got a question that I've been asking for a few days and he hasn't answered, so I'm going to put him on the spot. And for a start, Tyler, quite strategically, we focus on the day two piece, which is when the systems are running. And why is that? Because that's where most of the time is burnt. So day one activities are typically project activities. It could be an installation. These days, most SAP systems are not installations. They're migrations or upgrades, or probably still you doing Unicode conversions. They're still non-Unicode systems, probably. I bet there are.
I'm sure there are.
I'm sure there are. I was talking to a customer and they've still got 40B and 131i customer. So there's still, those are non-Unicode.
It's almost a badge of pride these days now.
Badge of pride, yeah. We've all got those. But the point being is that the time is spent in day two operations, which is why we focus on those, and it's reducing the things that are repetitive. But I sit there looking at our workflow engine, and I know that we didn't build out these use cases yet, but Bernd, I assume that if you have a project and you've got an S4 migration project in place, and let's make it simple, let's just call it a cloud migration. I assume you could build out in our workflow engine the steps to do most of that, maybe not all of it, but I assume that you could build that project activity and build your runbook for that piece of transformation, the day one transformation, in our workflow engine. Or am I announcing what's happening in Avantra 24? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, having a system refresh and trying out to do such a transformation automatically has a huge benefit, because what we hear from our MSP customers who really are in projects and do these kind of transformations, that basically all of these sizings are wrong in the first place. They say 95% are never working. We need to try it out. It's similar to what we've shown with the scale up of the server, right?
Which is kind of a combination between day one, day two activities, isn't it?
Actually, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are kind of minor enhancements. But Bernd, getting back to it though, I mean, when I used to run a business that did migrations and upgrades, so I know a little bit about this. And the number one problem is the tension between the number of times you can repeat the activity and the cost of the project, because each additional repetition brings better reliability and better chance of a successful outcome. However, it costs money, and it might cost $100,000 per repetition. So if you want to move from 3 or 4 to 5 or 6, you could be adding $250,000 to the budget, and nobody's going to sign that off. Can't we automate that stuff in the future for day one as well as the day 1.5 and day two, so that people could then they could run it every weekend. It's not going to cost them any money. They could run it every weekend through the 3 months of the project. They can do 12 instead of 3 or 4. I mean, am I crazy here?
Let me answer this question. We have a customer, right? It's an enterprise customer, and they have 2,000 SAP systems. Sometimes we hear different numbers. They do not actually know how many systems they've got. A huge amount of systems. So impossible to do, let's say, in a greenfield way, to restructure everything and to build new applications. Impossible for them. So they are looking in a way how to industrialize these SAP transformations to S/4HANA, right? And they are looking for example, they want to implement a tool, right, which helps them to discover, okay, what problems do we have? And these are all activities where Avantra can help. We can deploy these tools prior to a transformation. And then, for example, they might want to move a system S/4HANA into a new data center or to the cloud, right? And then combining a bit of Ansible here, as we have seen. So there are many use cases where we can help for an S/4HANA transformation project, especially at scale, right? When you want to repeat this and do several lift and shift, as this huge customer is doing with his systems. Yeah. Does this answer your question, John?
Kind of. We'll get there. We should probably bring
I think he wants a firm commitment from you on the complete automation of day one activities.
As always. But well,
one of the questions that just came in, I think this is an important question, is, automation isn't a new concept. And even within SAP, there's been people doing it for a while. And the question is more of, basic teams have been doing scripting for years. How is this different?
Do you want to take that?
Well, especially when I work with it myself, right? I used to work with Perl, so I'm old, right? So I still know these old, well, a little old. So I still know these languages which were invented in the 90s or so, and I always had a hard time with debugging, right? This stuff. And what really was a wow effect when I saw this integrated debugger, and the agent is running somewhere on an SAP system, so we can agentless. We can do agentless and with agent, but with an agent you can do a few things, right? Especially in a network environment which has some restrictions due to enterprise security, and I could actually debug where my script is running. This was quite an experience for me.
I would take a step further as well, and bringing it back to your question, Tyler. Why is this different? I want to acknowledge that actually a lot of those scripts that were put together by operations experts, basis experts, they're fantastic. They're absolutely fantastic, and they work really well in the scenario for which they were designed. But where there can be a bit of a challenge is when you try to port them. Let's say you're doing an S/4HANA migration, you implement S4, and then suddenly you realize that script that you were relying on, it doesn't work anymore. Whereas if you're using a platform like what we're bringing to the table, and let's say you're using the no-code, low-code options that take care of how do you use the connection into the SAP system, how do you actually call the function modules that you want to call, or whatever the case may be, it kind of abstracts you away from having to know everything about Red Hat, everything about whatever flavor of Linux or Windows that you happen to be using, and allows your scripts to become more robust, more portable, and ultimately can be deployed far faster. So that to me is one of the key advantages.
Oh yeah, and I know other advantage. We take care, for example, for the user credentials, right?
Oh yeah.
You will never end up with some script with hard-coded user password, which is a security issue.
And auditing as well.
Guys, you've talked about the benefits there of the platform, but it's a lot more than that, right? Because every time that we typically co-innovate with a customer or a set of customers to build an automation template or something like this. And
right.
The system refresh was built originally with one of our good customers, so we built that out for them. Obviously, we built out with the generic concept in mind, so not just for them. So, and that's the point. So first of all, if you're building it yourself, you've got to write it yourself, with or without our platform. But in our platform, we're going to deliver those templates to you, and it's not just going to be refresh. There are 12, I think, with the Avantra 23 release. and that 12 will be 100 by the time we know it. And that's, so the platform is one piece, but the content is much more powerful, because I talked to a customer that automated SAP start stop. It took them a developer year to do so. That's just a standard function in our platform.
Yeah.
And actually, the other thing as well, John, is that it's not just that you get the black box of the content that you can use. It's the fact that it's there, designed to be understood and extensible. I think that's the other power of the platform. And I actually loved your call to action at the start. And in my role, I'm always hearing from customers. We want to hear the problems that customers want to automate, that they're not able to, or that they're struggling to automate, because they're the interesting ones, and they're the ones that we can then potentially help with. Suddenly there's an enterprise add-in in the future, and as you say, that list grows to the hundreds suddenly.
Yep. So guys, I've got an interesting one here, and I'll read it, and then I'll put my interpretation on it. And we're coming short on time, so I know this is a big one. We could probably talk about this for hours, so try to keep it short if we can. But the question is, what about RISE? But I'm gonna add something on this, but maybe we can talk about RISE, but also just a little bit greater than RISE. Hybrid environments. And if we can do it in 2 minutes, that's fantastic. So that's the challenge.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna grab this one, because this is my thing. I mean, my view on RISE is, and I talked to the board at SAP about this many times over the years. The big challenge that they had originally was moving the long tail of 20,000 smaller R3 customers onto the cloud and onto S4. And to me, RISE is an absolutely phenomenal way to achieve that. And it gives them a choice. They can move to S4HANA public cloud, or they can move to RISE. They've got plenty of options, and RISE is a great option for a set of those customers. I think when we get into the classic SAP manufacturing Fortune Global 1000 installed base, their landscape complexity and their business complexity is unbelievable. I mean, Bernd, you talked about a customer with 2,000 SAP systems. I suspect they would love to get that down. But for them then, RISE becomes part of the fabric of their story. So that they're going to have on-prem systems and private cloud systems and public cloud systems. They're going to have SaaS solutions, IaaS, PaaS, and they're going to have RISE. And so from a landscape management and operations perspective, RISE is one of the tools that they will use to deploy SAP. It's not the only one. And that's just, if you talk to any of the Global 1000, that's what they say. RISE is great for these scenarios. But you need to manage all of the old stuff and the new stuff, and that's what I would say to think about. If you can truly get just to one RISE system, that's an incredible thing, and do it. But for a lot of customers, it's part of their story and part of the fabric. And I didn't leave much time for a response from Brenton or Bernd, but there you are.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks, John.
I think it's a good stuff.
Yeah. Well, from a technical perspective, we are certified works with RISE with SAP, right? You just need to use the agentless deployment option, and here we go.
Great stuff. Well, guys, I want to say thank you to Marcus and to Manny, Brent and Bernd. Thanks for joining us in the Germany studio, and John, thanks for joining us here. And thanks everyone that joined us all over the globe, and looking forward to further conversations. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks.